Welcome to Off the Rails, brought to you by the Model Railway YouTube community group, MRYCG, connecting the model railway community together. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course YouTube. Just search for MRYCG. So here we are, 8 months down the line with the final episode of the Off the Rails podcast for 2020. It's been a great year, it's gone so fast and we've enjoyed every moment of it, and I'm sure you have too. So during this last episode of the year, we have all the usual features but with a festive twist. So with the final episode of 2020, we have all the usual features such as the news, interviews, live stream schedule, talking points and Disaster Diaries, but all with a bit of a festive feel, as we know the big day is due. So let's look forward and jump on board and enjoy the show. Right, so here we are again with another interview for you to listen to on the Off the Rails podcast with MRYCG. Today I've got with me Peter Clark of Chelmsford Junction Model Railway. Hello Peter and welcome to the show.
Good evening Jason, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm hoping we're going to be having a great time with you answering some of these questions to get a bit of an insight into your modelling history, past, present and future.
I look forward to it.
So on with question 1, Peter, and that's how long have you actually been interested in model railways?
It all started when I was about 18 months old. I had an eye operation and the hospital that I was in for the eye operation overlooked the main line into Plymouth Station. That spawned on the life of model railways in my life, normal railways in my life, and model railways came to me at the age of 4, which is 36 years ago. I had a Hornby LMS Duchess class train set, which was put on a piece of plasterboard in the front room, and it grew from there. Obviously, as I got older in teenage years, model railways went to the side, and I picked it back up again in my later teens, and it's just gone from strength to strength to strength. I've just managed to grow my collection, my abilities to do what I can do on the railway from there, basically.
Would you say you had any inspirations from maybe your family members or friends?
Family members and friends, they were never into model railways. It was always me that was into the model railways, and all my friends would always come round my house. Oh, Pete, can we ever go on your model railway? And it was always up into the bedroom or outside in my later teens when I bought myself an 8x6 shed. Come on, let's go out in the shed and let's have a play on the trains. And it was my dad that helped me build my model railways. He's no longer around, but I'm hoping that he's looking down upon me now, and hopefully he's smiling and enjoying what I'm building nowadays. And it's a big challenge what I'm building. It's the biggest I've gone.
Now you say you got your mates round and things like that, and people round visiting and wanting to play the trains on your train sets. That you had that back in the younger days. Would you say you inspired any of those to get involved?
I don't think I did, because they're all into, especially my main 3 friends, they're into cars. One of my big friends, he's into boats and fishing. So I'm the one that kept the model railway life going within my circle of friends and family. They call me the boring one, a lot of them do.
So you've got a layout now, and it's called Chelmsford Junction. Tell us a little bit about that layout.
Chelmsford Junction is a fictional place anywhere between Birmingham and Plymouth in Devon. It's based on the Great Western Railway area, so you could see anything from castles, kings, through to your high mets, your westerns, your warships, up to the HSTs, then going into your class 101s, 156, 150s, into your 37s, where you've got the Cornish China clay trains going through Devon and going through up towards Scotland, and then going further up, and you're going into like how the HSD castle sets are, Class 66s, 60s, and there will be eventually, hopefully, a Class 800 coming onto the scene. It's one side is the depot side, which holds 4 roads traction maintenance depot for 4 engines at a time. It's got 4 lanes of sidings, which hold all my trains that are not in service. And there is a massive station on the other side, which is literally only just been built. And it took 6 to 7 packs of the Metcalfe platform kits. And I never wanted to see a Metcalfe kit for a while. It done my head in. It was such a long and hard process. It took 4 of us to lift one platform to get it all put in right. So it's a challenge. It's the biggest one I've had. It's 20 foot long by about 12 foot wide. It's a tail chaser, and at the moment it is having its 3rd main line put in as we speak. I've been doing that today.
And how long has that actually been under construction then?
The layout itself has been under construction for about 1.5 years now, I think. Oh, it's coming up to 1.5 years. I've given myself a 5-year goal to basically try and get it to some form of nice standards where there's quite a bit of scenic on it. There may be places where it might be still bare baseboards, but what I'm doing is I want to concentrate on one area at a time, get that pulled up to the standard that I would like it to be at before I go on to another area.
What are you enjoying the most, though, of the current build?
At the moment, I'm enjoying putting in DCC Concepts IP Cobalt point motors, and I'm also enjoying at the moment putting in the 3rd main line. And I'm actually really looking forward to replacing my 12 Pico turnout motors, which are solenoids, and replacing them with DCC Concepts Cobalts.
Do you have any part of the layout that you've got to already that you actually regret doing and plan to go back to then? Would you say those point motors might cover that?
The point motors definitely, in hindsight, I wish I'd gone straight to DCC Concepts, because the Pico point motors, there's so much wiring underneath the depot side, which was the original side of the layout. Because when it first started, it was only an end-to-end. Then it went to an L shape, and then it went to the tail chaser as it is now. Moving forwards, the bottom section where my TV is, which acts as a tunnel at the moment, I want to realign all the old 2 tracks to fit the 3rd track in, because I wasn't happy with the 2 tracks originally. There was too many. One bend goes into another bend, goes into another bend, and then goes into a sharp curve. I wasn't happy when I laid that about 2 or 3 months ago. So that's the one thing that is at the moment bugging me, and I can't wait to finish that area, get that area redone and done to the way that I want it to be.
Of all the locos and rolling stock that you currently own, what would you say is your most favourite?
That is the most easiest question going. Being a Great Western boy, my hometown of Plymouth, numerous operations on my eye, and spending a lot of time in the Royal Eye Infirmary overlooking the main line into Plymouth train station, got to be the HSDs.
An absolute legend of British engineering.
Most definitely. It's a shame that the HSTs are not doing the 4-run main line now to Paddington, but I've got to get myself down to Plymouth next year and get on a castle set at least, because I want to have one more ride behind an HST before they finally retire in a few years.
Have you ever considered actually building an exhibition layout and showing it?
I did have an exhibition layout about 6 years ago. It went out on one show. I purchased it secondhand from a person that I met at an exhibition. He was selling it, just literally analog. There was no point motors or anything. So I had to fit point motors. I had to make my own little, I forget what they call the fiddle yard at the ends. I had to do a lot of detailing work, i.e. bushes. I had made a cameo where there was a police scene with a man with a gun to a woman's head. Obviously, it didn't look right in the middle of a traction maintenance depot, but it was my little funny idea of a cameo. But would I do one again? Who knows what's in the future? You never know what's in the future.
So moving on towards your modelling What would you say has been your proudest moment or achievement within the hobby so far?
Proudest moment is taking my layout, Chelmsford Junction, from an L shape into a complete gel chaser. Myself and my friend that built all the framework for the tail chaser, we had to put in a lift out section for access to the back garden for my wife to be able to put the washing out. It was a hard task because it is the one point of the board where it comes up is on a bend. It was quite tricky to align, but we found a way of doing it, and the trains run over that absolutely no problems, and I absolutely love it. When I don't need to have the board up, it could just be flat down, tracks just clicked together with just 4 fish plates, well, will be now 6 fish plates, and it just runs so beautifully. I'm so proud of that section. I can't wait to do more work on my layout.
Now, moving away from the layout and modelling in general, and it's taken towards more of the hobby in the wider community, what are your thoughts on bringing the younger generation into the hobby?
We have to bring the younger generation into the hobby. Model railways as a whole was slowly, I wouldn't say dying, but was becoming known as the old weird people that just live in their lofts or in their sheds or in their garage. Now we've had the show Model Railway Challenge. Children have watched that. They've watched Harry Potter. They're still able to now watch new series of Thomas the Tank. Without those programs, the youngsters would not realise what they could do with model railways, especially the Model Railway Challenge. Some of the layouts on there were absolutely fantastic. So we need the youngsters to come on board, join the clubs. I was with a club based in Erith in Kent a few years ago. They even have a child section for the youngsters to come on board into the club and grow with the club. Always welcome. It's good to have children there. We need them to keep this hobby alive.
Indeed we do. Now for the final question before we hit the quick fire round, and that's how useful do you find online social media and forums are towards providing modelling information?
I would not be without YouTube. It was thanks to YouTube. I won't mention people's names or channels. There are a few people out there that I looked at them and I was like, right, I've got to get back into model railways. This is what I want to do. They're my inspiration. They're the ones that give me the kick up the bum to get myself back into the hobby, and I'm glad I did. If I've ever got a situation where I can't think of a thing to do in a little area, I watch other people's channels and think, oh, I could do what he's done there in that little area. Or if I find, right, I'm struggling on how I wire up a certain point motor or a certain bus wire. Again, you could always go to YouTube, Facebook, and the forums. You can ask a question. If you're wiring up, hard wiring a loco from, say, like the 1980s or 1990s with a DCC chip, I wouldn't know where to start. But if I needed to know the information, YouTube's there, the forums are there. MRYCG is a brilliant place to find out information. They're brilliant ideas. Without them, I'd be lost.
So thank you very much, Peter of Chelmsford Junction Model Railway. Thank you for answering those questions and giving us an insight into your model railway past, present and future. But now it's time for us to take you into the quick fire round. These are questions that a lot of people give us some really interesting answers. So if you're ready, Peter, we'll be getting on and fire away with these questions.
Let's do this.
Excellent stuff. So here we go with quickfire question 1. What is your favourite beverage?
Southern Comfort lemonade.
Question 2. What is your favourite snack?
Knickknacks.
And final question 3. What is your favourite all-time TV show?
You bet.
So thank you very much, Peter, for those quickfire answers. Before you go, please tell us, where can we find yourself with Chelmsford Junction Model Railway?
Well, a lot of people know that I am on YouTube, and my YouTube name is Chelmsford Junction. You can also find me on Twitter, which is at Chelmsford JCT, which is Junction for short. So it's at Chelmsford Junction. And I can be found also on Facebook as Peter Clark.
So thank you very much, Peter, for taking the time to be interviewed for the Off the Rails podcast. We look forward to seeing future updates and information from the Chelmsford Junction Model Railway in the future across the social media platforms that you're available on. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, stay well, and best of all, everybody, keep on modelling. Bye from me.
Bye-bye from Chelmsford Junction.
Do you want to get involved? Then why not check out the official Facebook page and group? Just search for MRYCG, the Model Railway YouTube community group.
Hello, this is Jason from Barnabas Junction. I'd just like to take this moment to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hello and welcome to this next interview with the MRYCG Off the Rails podcast. In this one, I introduce to you Jack of the MRYCG Juniors, aka also Benton Road. Good afternoon, Jack.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Now, first of all, you are a junior. You are the one of the younger modelers. You actually are the group leader of the MRYC Juniors, but we'll come back to that a little bit later on. We can have a talk about that. But what we want to talk about is you and your modelling as a young modeler. So we're going to inflict you with the random questions that we've been asking a lot of the other modelers, but some of the questions will be slightly changed due to your younger age. And so we'll start off with, what was your first ever train or train set?
Well, I started with I started with Little 040. I think it was Begg's Tooling or the Caledonian. It was either one of the two. And it used to run around my dad's layout, which he had in the shed. And then when my dad and my mum parted, I didn't have a layout. So it wasn't until the age of 4 when I actually got my first proper railway to run that locomotive. And that train set that I got was the Strike Force set. So I had the 2 locomotives and a few wagons, and it's basically grown from there.
So would you say your father was your inspiration into getting into model railways?
Yes, definitely. My dad's been doing it, I think his late teens when his dad came back with, I think it was an Iron Duke set.
So it's something that's followed on through the generations then, and you're following it.
It's been a family affair for a while.
So you've got a layout now?
Yes, I've got 4 layouts at the moment. I've got a small box file railway. I've got the one in the loft, which I'm pretty sure everyone knows. I've got Tinley TMD, which is my small TMD layout, and I'm in the process of building my exhibition layout, which I'm hoping to be finishing next year, around autumn time, so I'll be able to take that to my local exhibition.
Are all your layouts based on a particular era?
They're not really on a particular era. I think they're probably modern era, but it's more of a preserved / modern running together. So I know my local railway, they've got the station that they use is also owned by Southern Railway. So it's no particular, but I've tried to basically keep it to modern.
What have you found that's been the most favourite part of building a layout or model railway so far?
I'm not entirely sure. I like doing the scenery, but mostly running trains.
So of the layouts that you've got, are they all fictional locations or are any actually based on real locations?
All of them are just fictional. So I'd say Benton, which is my exhibition railway I'm building at the moment, is closely based off Didcot Railway and the Bluebell Railway, but it's only small parts. There's no exact bit that is exactly replicated by those 2 heritage lines. But it's just small parts I've kind of integrated into the railway because I've liked the design of it.
Now, you've got your 4 layouts, but a lot of your layouts are built using some kits, and those kits are your own. Tell us about the kits that you've produced.
Well, since lockdown, which was, started back in March, I've been unable to get hold of buildings and other such materials for my railway. So I had the idea of doing a bit of computer-aided design, and I started designing my own printable kits. Now, I've got a printer here, which has been quite a bit of help, and a massive thank you to my mum for allowing me to use it and use her ink up. With the help of the printer, I've designed and made 3 printable kits for anyone to use. They're free of charge, as I said. They're really simple to build. There's nothing really spectacular about them, so don't expect them to be as good as Metcalf, but it's just a bit of fun. They usually take about 30 to 40 minutes to build, and instructions are included with most of the kits.
Now we'll tell the listeners where they can find the kits a little bit later on in the show. I've done one of your kits. How many kits roughly have you produced up to now?
I've got 6 kits, I believe, on my website, though I've got to put on 4 more, and I am doing a special commission for Jason that I've designed for him in DRS, so that will be coming along nicely.
Oh, that's very kind of you, and I look forward to that indeed. So, yes, find out where you can get hold of Jack's kits a little bit later in this. Of the rolling stock then, and locomotives that you've got that run on these numerous layouts that you've got, what's your favourite of each?
DB Schenker Class 59.
Okay, Jack, as you are a younger generation modeller, what are your thoughts on actually the younger generation getting into the hobby?
I would say it's getting expensive. It's getting ridiculously expensive, especially with the new Hornby Railroad range. They've got locomotives that are £67, and I get that they've got manufacturing costs and they've got to pay the manufacturers, employees, wages and stuff like that. But they are the old Lima castings. There's nothing really spectacular about them, and I just think they're getting overpriced. Second-hand prices are going up now, especially since lockdown. They've rocketed up. I've been lucky with the bargains that I've found, especially with that job lot I found. I know you've seen the photos of, but I do think it's getting overpriced, and younger modelers will be put off if not careful.
Yeah, something about the price, and I mentioned there about the Hornby Railroad range. Yes, it is a low-budget range, and it is the ex-Lima tooling as such. I think pretty much the only alteration is the fact that DCC sockets are included in them these days.
But I know with my Lima Class 67, Lima have put I think DCC sockets in there. So that I think some of the sockets in the railroad ones are the old Lima sockets. So I just think it's getting out of hand now, and their pricing is something which is about 20 years old.
Now, moving on towards social media for the modelling generation, especially for yourself and the younger generation. You are the group leader of the MRYCG Juniors group, but we'll come to that in a little tiny bit. We've just got a couple more things to go on to. But as a younger modeller in general, how do you find that social media and forums are for you compared to maybe the magazine direction?
Well, the magazine, you get a lot of tips and they are professionally written. But with the social media side, you've got more young people on it, especially now with apps like Instagram and Snapchat. So I do feel that in some ways the popularity has grown with, I know, MRYCG being on Instagram and stuff like that. But I also feel that people, young children and young modelers are being put off by older modelers in certain ways. Maybe because of their, being intimidated by what they're producing and thinking that it's not good enough, or just not really wanting to join an adult group, whether that be certain reasons or not. But I do think that social media does play a part in young people getting into the hobby.
So I've got one more generic question to ask before we go on and talk about the MRYCG Juniors. What has been your proudest moment or achievement within the hobby so far?
Being asked to be the leading member for MRYCG Juniors. I think that is definitely my proudest moment of the hobby.
And that follows on quite nicely, actually, onto what is MRYCG Juniors. Now, obviously, MRYCG hosts this podcast, Off the Rails. We do have the Facebook group, we have Twitter, we have Instagram. But we also now have, for the younger generation, as Jack mentioned about the not wanting to be so much involved into the elder generation of modelers, MRYCG, with coordination of Jack and of Owen, of Owen's Model Railways, we brought together MRYCG Juniors, a place where the younger generation, ages between 13 and 18, can actually be together themselves, and Jack has been appointed the group leader. So Jack, how have you found the MRYCG Juniors since you came on board and took control?
Well, it's been going for about 2 months now, I'd say, and I feel it has been quite successful. We've been getting about one member every other day at the moment. We're almost at 30 members. But basically what we try to aim is to try and get young people into the group to create a safe space and move away from the older generation of modelers that might put them off by thinking that their modelling isn't as good as theirs. And just to, as I said, create a safe space for young modelers to talk to another young modeler with any questions or advice they may have.
One thing to notice is MRYCG. It does come across to many people that it's mainly UK based, but we're not. MRYCG is worldwide based. So if you are a junior between the ages of 13 and 18 and you are anywhere in the world, then get in touch with the MRYCG Juniors on the Facebook group, and Jack will speak with you and introduce you into the group. So get in touch.
If you are younger than 13 and you don't have a Facebook account, then ask your parents nicely if you can use their account to join. Of course, you'll have to verify that. But if you are under the age of 13 where you don't have a Facebook account, but you really want to join the group, just get your parents' account and ask if you can join and get them to contact either me, Jason, or Owen, and we will try and sort something out for you.
Yeah, obviously, due to it being a group of minors, it is highly moderated for safety and security. So don't worry. We will speak with any parents that are concerned, and we hope that the juniors will join it. Now, obviously, you've got already some great plans in place for the juniors group. Without giving any secrets away, give us a little bit of an insight of what we're looking forward to.
Well, we're hoping to do a weekly/fortnightly, depending on when me and Owen have time, to do a stream 7 till 8 on a Saturday evening. We will do competitions, maybe every month or so, and we also have guests that will come onto the stream. If you want to be involved in that, then contact us and we will try and get you onto the stream to talk about your railway. Apart from that, it's just to try and get young people into the hobby.
Ever-growing information and interest in the hobby.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for letting us know about that. But before we do go, we're going to really throw you in with the generic quick-fire questions, Jack, that everybody gets. Now, these questions are for anybody, regardless of your age. So with that said, we're going to fire off with quick-fire question 1. And that is, what is your favourite beverage?
Coke.
Question 2. What is your favourite snack?
Crisps.
And final question 3. What is your favourite all-time TV show?
Oh, gosh. The A-Team.
Lovely answers there, and I do like that A-Team answer, especially. So thank you very much, Jack, for taking the time to do these answers for these questions. We have thoroughly enjoyed your time spent with us and talking about your modelling. Now, before you go, obviously, we need to let everyone know, where can they find you doing your modelling?
You can find me at Facebook at Benton Road or YouTube at my YouTube channel, Benton Road. And there's also a website that I use to publish, my latest videos and any behind-the-scenes articles that you may want to read.
Now, also, we mentioned earlier about the kits. You do have kits available. Where can they find your kits that they do?
You can find my free kits on my website. It's under free downloadable kits. My site's really easy to navigate, so you'll find it one way or another. So the range is ever growing, and I know Owen from Owen's Model Railway has now started to design his own, and we will be doing a special conjunction kit, so that will be coming out fairly soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jack, and we look forward to seeing further developments, further modelling from you and all the layouts that you do. Take care,
Cool.
and we'll see
Thank you,
you
Jason.
again very soon.
Hello, this is Owen from Owen's Model Railways, wishing you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
The first ever Worley virtual exhibition has taken place over the 28th and 29th of November. Due to COVID regulations, the annual exhibition at the Birmingham NEC couldn't take place as normal. The event was packed with live segments and pre-recorded videos from the likes of Hornby, Pico and World War Scenics. Various guests featured during the live shows, such as Carol Flavin of Team Loco Ladies from the Great Model Railway Challenge, Steve Flint of Pico and Railway Modeller Magazine, Richard Progman of Batman, Matt Peddleston of Dovetail Games, plus many more. The event was organised by Worley Model Railway Club Virtual Event Coordinator Andy Hudson and was a huge hit with Model Railway fans from across the globe, receiving thousands of views across all the Worley Club's social media during the 2-day online virtual event. Paul Jones, Worley chairman, said, "It has been superb. A big thank you to all the sponsors, without them this event couldn't have happened. A big thanks goes out to MRYCG for helping us put this show into place, and all the effort from the group to make sure that the show went ahead. A big thanks also to all at Worley Club who have worked so hard over the last few weeks to bring this brilliant show together for people who would have otherwise missed out. It has been a great weekend filled with great content. Hopefully there will be lights at the end of the railway tunnel, and we hope to see people in person at Easter." The event supported the Macmillan charity and raised over £300 to date.
Are you a model railway fan looking for ideas for your layout? Maybe you are a person who likes the social side of the hobby and making new friends. If this sounds like a great idea, then why not check out the MRYCG live stream schedule, where we have a growing community of friendly people who enjoy showcasing their skills, chatting to fellow modellers, but most of all, sharing their tips and tricks to people from all around the world. There are many people in this list who have an assorted range of skills, specialising in many different aspects of modelling, and thoroughly enjoy meeting new people in hope to help you progress with your projects and layouts. Check out the MRYCG livestream schedule now and be part of a fun and friendly community. Find us at mrycg.com/livestream schedule.
Well, I hope you're enjoying this last episode of Off the Rails podcast with MRYCG for 2020. Still to come, we've got the competitions and also the great Disaster Diaries by James Cullen. But before that, we're going to hand you over to Luke and Oliver with their latest episode of Talking Points.
Thank you, Jason, for the introduction there. Welcome to Talking Points. I'm Oliver, he's Luke. So, in this episode of Talking Points, we thought we'd talk about what we've learned about the 2 lockdowns that have happened. The second one should be coming to an end about now. And what we've seen works really well through them. So the first one that I'm just going to talk about is supporting people online. It's really, really important. And obviously, without model railway clubs and communities and things like that, it's really difficult to have that socialisation. Not only just within the hobby, but in the grand scheme of things with bars and things being closed as well. So I think what we've learned during the 2 lockdowns has been how important that online community is, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, whatever. I think it's really drawn a lot of the community together and created a much more sense of togetherness, which I wasn't really aware of that was that wide.
Yeah, it can be quite a lonely hobby normally, like before COVID. And so suddenly we're not allowed to go to clubs, meet up, exhibitions. I mean, that's a massive social side of the hobby, and now we've lost that at the moment. And so just sharing your projects with your friends, checking on everyone basically, because at the end of the day we've all got mental health, we need to be out looking out for each other. I mean, we do this a lot, don't we? We always talk about our projects with each other, discussing ideas, layout plans, and I think also just keeps us in touch with the hobby really well, keeps us motivated, because yeah, as I said, it can be kind of a lonely hobby. When we lose such a big social side, we can feel sometimes a little bit lost with what to do ourselves. And so yeah, just checking on your mates and talking about your project stuff, it just keeps you engaged, I think, as well.
Definitely. It's nice to talk to people I'm not sure about anybody who's out there, but none of my mates in real life particularly are into trains and model railways. So it's nice to be able to just dip into a social aspect of just something I'm really passionate about. The other thing that I think is worth a mention is supporting local model shops and cottage industries. I think it's been really, really nice to see. And that was one of the big worries going into COVID, is that we'd lose cottage industries, not just within model railways, but globally. And it's really, really refreshing to see the amount that have almost grown out of the woodwork from COVID, and to see people supporting them in any way they can. It's been really, really nice to see.
Yeah, and I think something we often overlook is how important exhibitions are for trading for small model shops, especially if they've got a big online presence. Because we've of course got those big retailers out there, but it's the smaller ones that are going to be taking a lot more of the brunt of the impact of loss of sales. And so I think that's, if we can continue to try and support local model shops, we can help keep them open and just do more of our spending with them rather than with some of the bigger shops as well. And cottage industries, again, it's fantastic to support modelers who really cater for other modelers. There's not massive profit margins in cottage industries. It can be quite difficult to juggle a job and a small business, and so really good to support them as well. And again, they're going to have lost a lot of trade during exhibitions, and we're not going to have exhibitions for a while by the looks of it. So I think supporting those is really important, especially as we go through this kind of future period of uncertainty of what's allowed and what isn't allowed and what can happen.
Definitely, and local model shops are such a... I've spoken about this before on the podcast and things. They're such a genesis for ideas around the hobby. It's, again, part of that social aspect that you miss at exhibitions and in shops, and we're somewhat making up for online. It's really, really refreshing to see so many local model shops having Facebook competitions, like header competitions, quite common on groups like MRYCG and the like, but not really seen very much of that happen with regards to individual model shops. So it's really, really refreshing to see that online, and really getting to grips with Facebook and using it as an effective tool for advertising. Because, as you mentioned, we have got the big three players when it comes to major stockists. And yeah, supporting the little guy can be very, very rewarding, especially as it's supporting a local business.
Yeah, they are the absolute backbone of the hobby. It's the kind of thing you don't realise how important they are until they're kind of not there as such. And yeah, support them if we can. It's interesting you mentioned Facebook there, because something I've noticed a lot going through lockdowns and having to, social isolate and stuff like that, is how important it is to be aware of other people on social media and be a part of those groups, because they kind of take place as a social replacement for exhibitions and stuff like that. And it's a fantastic way to be engaged with and be involved with new communities. And that's something I found. I found new friends, new communities, new sources of inspiration, different modelers, not just in the model railing world, but also in the wider modelling kind of overlook of it. And that's something I've definitely learned through lockdowns.
Definitely. And I think it's drawn a lot of people closer together, I think, due to the fact, obviously, you can talk a lot more when you're not working or whatever. Now, something that I've really enjoyed through lockdown is setting myself little challenges and trying to learn new skills. So in my case, I've been trying to repair a couple of white metal loco kits, and I found it really, really refreshing. It's a different angle to modelling that I've not done before, and I know yourself, you've taken on different angles of modelling as well, and it's really, really rewarding, and it just helps get through some of that boredom that lockdown does cause.
Absolutely. I remember when the first lockdown hit, and I was like, I was really busy. I was working on the run up to my A levels at the time, and I had a part-time job on the side, and so I was 6-7 days a week, just so intense work, and then it just wasn't there, and that's when modelling really kicked in again for me. And it's just, we had so much time to develop new skills. I think we should really take advantage of that. And like you said, pick up some different projects. I've kind of reassessed how I like to model, different things I enjoy modelling. I've rebuilt a couple of layouts during lockdown, and yeah, learning new skills and challenging ourselves. I've looked at some wider plastic kit building as well, as rather just focusing on building model railway layouts, is exploring different techniques and just enjoying the hobby, the wider hobby as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. And the things we mentioned aren't expensive in the grand scheme of the hobby. White metal kits can be had, especially if they've not been brilliantly put together, for 10-15 quid on eBay. The model kits that you were putting together were no more than 15-20 quid, if that. So it's really nice to have almost like a budget challenge, which is another thing that we've trialed as a pair over lockdown, and that was doing a budget challenge, and it was really, really refreshing.
I really enjoyed that challenge. So we both gave ourselves a budget of £5, and we said to each other, we're going to find a logo for that price, and we're going to fix it up, convert it, modify it, make it our own. And that's something that kept us really focused. Maybe that's something you guys might want to explore with one of your friends. I mean, £5 for a logo was quite ambitious, I'd say, and we were scouring the darkest parts of eBay for many days trying to find some cheap bargains going. But it was really, really fun, and it's kind of, again, it opened my eyes to different styles of modelling, and under the pressure of the budget I've learned so many new skills, different techniques, and had to improvise in different ways, and use different products that I would never normally be exposed to, and products I still use now, 6 months later.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, obviously we had a focus on rolling stock, but I've seen people build buildings on a budget through lockdown, through serial card, and finding that really, really useful to them and helping them move forward, meaning that they don't have to be reliant on resin kits or resin buildings from the likes of Scaledale or whatever Backman's one is. I think it's brought a lot of people a refreshing change when, like, obviously money does go down, and as such we can have to be a bit more creative when it comes to modelling. I've seen a lot of people compare it to what it was like when modelling was first around, and people had to do a lot more on their own. So those original 1950s, 1960s 00 layouts, a lot of the buildings were serial card or whatever because there wasn't a ready-to-run, ready-to-plant variation. And I've seen our RM web has exploded as well with projects and things, and a lot of them do have a somewhat of a budget focus, because I think all of us have become a little bit more budget aware because people aren't earning money.
I've definitely become more money conscious in my modelling, which is why I've looked at some cheaper plastic kits. I'm a massive fan of snow runner and mud runner, like off-road trucking games, and I did some research and I found you could get some of the kits of the trucks in the game as plastic kits for between £5 and £15. That's what I've been working on recently, which has been really, really fun. But I think what I kind of also put into perspective is the amount of enjoyment I get for the amount of money I put in, because sometimes I'd spend a lot of money on a loco and I wouldn't get as much enjoyment as I got out of a £10 kit, which really put me into perspective. That's the lesson I learned, and kind of learning where I get the enjoyment from modelling as well in lockdown when I had this time to think about all of this.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously lockdown's viewed as such a negative thing, and massive amounts of mental health issues and things were spawned from it because we have lacked that socialisation. Humans are a very social species. So seeing that online and seeing things that you can do to help yourself, I think without modelling, I think my mental health would have suffered loads more than it actually did, because you can actively do something and just switch off from the outside world. And absolutely. I think it's such an important thing to do.
Absolutely. Lockdown has, induced so many different stresses, people worried about income, jobs, the future. And as you say, being able to switch off, go to a world that you've created. I think on our own podcast, we've touched on mental health and the hobby, what it could do as a benefit for it. And there's so many different ways it does benefit it, but being able to turn off, focus on something completely different, do something creative as well, rather than just doing other, boring tasks or doing work or stuff like that.
Certainly, and yeah, as I've said, I think without modelling, I think I would have really struggled. And I think without the community online, I'm very fortunate to have met you online, and obviously through Instagram and Facebook, met a couple of other people. And I think without them, not only would I have lost interest in the hobby, I think it would have been a lot worse lockdown.
Absolutely, yeah. I think lockdown again was one of my most productive times in the wild because I had so much free time. I could explore different avenues, and I could splash out on these £5 to £10 kits as well. Really enjoyable. Any kind of final points you want to bring forward?
The last one's kind of, if you're worried about someone, reach out to them. Obviously, we're approaching a time where mental health is really, really an important thing going up to Christmas. So if you are worried about someone, just reach out. You'd be amazed what a message does to someone.
Absolutely. So thanks for listening, and back to the MRYCG team.
Hello, this is Jack, the MRYCG Juniors group leader from Benton Road Model Railway, and I'm wishing you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Hello, I'm James Cullen, and welcome to Disaster Diaries with MRYCG. Ealing Broadway, Wednesday the 19th of December 1973. An accident with a twist. This one is a whodunit mystery. For those who don't know, Ealing Broadway is located on the Great Western Line between Paddington and Reading. On the evening of Wednesday, December the 19th, 1973, 1A82, the 1718 Express from Paddington, was making its way swiftly towards Oxford, headed by British Rail Class 52, D1007 Western Talisman. Built at Swindon, D1007 entered service in August 1st, 1962. Powered by two 1350 horsepower Maybach diesel engines, she could easily achieve speeds of 90 miles an hour despite weighing 109 tonnes. The train was formed of 11 British Rail Mark I coaches, with a combined seating capacity of 622. As they departed Paddington, every seat was full, and a further 25 passengers were standing in the aisles. Many of them were actually railway employees made up of technicians, clerks and officers from Waterloo, Paddington and the British Railways Board headquarters. The driver that evening was Mr. Owen from Old Oak Common, and his second man was Mr. Woolner. Driver Owen was a man with many years' experience who knew his route and his loco well. At just over 5.5 miles from Paddington, accelerating past 65 miles an hour, D1007 screamed towards Ealing Broadway station with around 420 tonnes whistling along behind her. Her twin engines hummed with excitement as Mr. Owen applied more power, seeing the clear signals ahead at Longfield Avenue Junction. The junction was basically straight and level, but had a facing point from the down main to the down relief line. As the locomotive passed through the western end of Ealing Broadway platform, driver Owen experienced a violent lurch from the train. He suspected it was a bit of bad track and made a mental note to report it when he stopped at Reading. The AWS bell chirped as he crossed the magnet approaching the Longfield Avenue signal, and immediately he heard a thunderous pounding on the rear of his loco. Then, without warning, the 109-ton monster rolled over into the air, smashing down like a hammer onto the right-hand side. She screamed along the rails, travelling at nearly 70 miles an hour, before rapidly grinding to a halt in a shower of ballast and debris. Miraculously, neither man in the cab was injured, and after a few moments both men had got over the shock of what had just happened and leaped into action. Second man Woolner pulled the fire precaution handle from the engine room of Western Talisman and then climbed up to get out through the near side window, which was now located directly above his head. He must get over to the nearest signal post telephone and warn Old Oak signal panel. Driver Owen helped him up to the window and then scrambled to get himself out of the stranded machine. Poking his head and shoulders out through the frame, he looked around. He must have wished he hadn't. His train of 11 coaches lay strewn across all 4 running lines. He slid back into his cab, reached for a tin of detonators, flung them up out of the window, and rapidly chased after them. He had to protect the up main and relief lines from the west. Observing the scene, it was evident the lead coach had remained upright despite being completely derailed. The second coach was at right angles to the track and had tragically crushed the rear of the first coach. Coaches 3, 4 and 5 had squeezed together, a knotted mess of metal and glass zigzagged across the tracks, their ends demolished and leaned up against the side of the cutting. A heavy cast steel Commonwealth bogie from the rear of coach 3 had sheared off and punched through the side of coach 4. This is where most of the fatalities and serious injuries had occurred. The last 5 coaches thankfully remained largely intact. How could this have happened? To figure this out, let's examine the events surrounding the locomotive preceding the accident. As many railway enthusiasts will know, the Class 52s were prone to sudden, unexpected and crippling mechanical failures. From the 8th to the 12th of December, D1007 was in Lara Depot for its 250-hour service. On the 12th it worked from Plymouth to Paddington Express. Then it went down with the Paddington to Wednesbury, a journey of approximately 360 miles, including some light running. By the time she reached Wednesbury, she required attention from the local fitters for a loss of coolant, transmission oil leaks and a reversing fault. It was decided to send her light engine to Plymouth to be repaired, only 150 miles away. On the 13th, Lara decreed that an engine swap at B end was required. The engine was lifted, and on the 14th, D1007 worked the evening train to Bristol. When she arrived, a fault had developed on the AWS equipment. She worked home on the 15th and was taken out of traffic with AWS and preheater faults. Returning to traffic on the 17th, Western Talisman reached Reading, where her A engine failed, and with assistance she limped to Old Oak Common on one engine. While in Old Oak, she was berthed ready for heavy repairs to her A engine injectors and fuel supply. While the fitters were busy toiling in the engine room, it's standard procedure to give the batteries a booster charge. The batteries sat down below the frames between the bogies, and the 16 battery units were wired together in series. They were arranged in 2 banks, 8 down each side, and housed in strong wooden cupboards. Each cupboard was closed by a double-skinned metal door, which measured 44.5 by 22.5 inches, with an inner liner made of wood. In total, each door weighed 80 pounds. That's just over 36 kilograms. The doors were lowered into a horizontal position, held in place with hinged struts that would often be used as a workbench. To keep these rather industrial doors closed, a pair of carriage door locks were employed and operated using a square-ended key. This design was used on the earlier Class 42s, and it was common for fitters to forget to lock them, so when they were moving at speed they would fall open, which obviously was very dangerous. To prevent injury or incident, a pear drop type catch was fitted to each door, which was a cheap solution, and it had its own problems, such as they would stick in position so the door wouldn't be locked or couldn't easily be opened. A resourceful chap at Lara Depot did devise an unofficial modification to the catch to alleviate this issue. By attaching a self-tapping screw to the end, it could be raised or lowered by twisting it between a finger and thumb. With this in mind, D1007 is in Lara Depot. The battery box doors have been unlocked and lowered. A battery attendant attached to charging cables. Various supervisors, fitters and labourers bustled around her, until, on the 19th of December, the work was completed, and after everything was tidied away, someone removed the charging leads from the batteries, flipped the doors up into position, and went on with their day. No one can honestly say who did what, but I'm assuming you may have started to guess what happened to cause the crash. Let's return to the accident scene and see if you're right. Chief Technician Turner had been travelling on a train following the ill-fated 1A82 from Paddington. Having stopped, he got down from his train and approached the rear of the crash site. To his horror, immediately realised that some of the coaches had dug up into the cutting and likely exposed the 660-volt signal control power cables. He rushed to the nearest signal post telephone and warned the panel at Old Oak they should not trust any panel indications between Ealing and Hanwell, and instructed them to isolate the 660-volt cable. Returning to the motor that controlled the facing points, he saw that, despite the machine being severely damaged, it was and had been correctly set and locked for the train to proceed along the main line. However, the point rodding from the motor to the point blades had received such a severe impact that the rod had been bent in turn dragged the point blades open by a whole inch. This might not sound much, but it's more than enough to allow the wheel flange to pass through the wrong side of the blade. The rear bogie of the diesel must have slid off the rails and dragged the train with it until the automatic train brake had been activated. Digging through the chaos of the immediate aftermath of the crash, almost hidden amongst the ballast and twisted remains of the train, Mr. Turner discovered a heavy-looking blue panel laid on the ground a few feet to the west of the points. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it had to be important. So important that a policeman was instructed to stand guard over it. At 18:35, Traction Inspector Holder arrived to inspect the scene and was drawn to a policeman standing guarding an unidentified blue panel. Despite inspecting it, he didn't recognise what it was either, until he moved to inspect the stricken locomotive and noted the battery box cupboard doors were missing. He rushed back to the mystery blue panel. One lock was missing, lost in the crash, but the other was intact and in the unlocked position. The pear drop catch was fixed in place, defiantly stuck in its raised position, held firm by the screw that should not have been there. Walking carefully back along the track at Ealing Station, it was found that one of the large and very heavy coping stones had been displaced from the west end of the platform, but there was no evidence of any impact at the east end. The picture of what had transpired started to become clear. The door had dropped open while the locomotive was racing through the station. It would have sat quite happily in the gap under the platform edge until it reached the coping stone on the ramp at the end of the station. This is what caused D1007 to violently rock as it cleared the platforms. The door would have been forced down, shearing off the hinged arms that until now had held it out horizontally. The 80-pound door dropped like a stone and skimmed the ballast, spraying it in all directions. Clinging on by its hinges, it would have just danced above the sleepers until it reached the point rodding that lay across its path. The impact with the point rodding was sufficient enough to simultaneously sever the door from the loco and bend the point rodding just enough to open the points under the moving train. Within moments, Western Talisman would have been on her side and innocent people's lives would be lost. To prove this theory, the rodding was removed and tested under a microscope. On it, there were paint fragments made up of 9 layers. a history of the Western liveries. Desert sand, green, maroon and corporate blue were all in evidence. Despite all the work put in and all the money spent, D1007 was withdrawn and scrapped soon after being removed from the crash site. 10 people lost their lives that day, 94 others were injured. One person caused that disaster, the person that didn't secure the battery box door, and they were never identified. Thank you for listening to this month's edition of Disaster Diaries with MRYCG. Tune in again next month for another episode. Bye for now.
Hi, I'm Owen.
And I'm Jack. And we are the group leaders for
MRYCG Juniors.
We are a group of 13 to 18-year-olds who are just getting started in our model railway adventure.
Our group is fully moderated and we are building a community with young people with advice and much more.
We hope to offer monthly competitions and fortnightly streams with our ever-growing community.
If you would like to join, go to facebook.com/groups/MRYCG Juniors or visit our website at mrycg.com under the social media tab.
For any questions or queries, get in touch with us via email juniors@mrycg.com.
Happy modelling!
Want to know more about MRYCG? Then why not check out our website at MRYCG.com, a place for model railway enthusiasts to come together and share stories and skills and so much more with the railway modellers in a community known as MRYCG, the Model Railway YouTube Community Group.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas from Craig at New Durham Junction. And Mr. Graham. And a Happy New Year. You filthy animals. Ah.
Hello, welcome to this month's edition of competitions for December. First one we got is KeyModelWorld.com. KeyModelWorld.com are offering a chance to win one of Bachmann's new 00 gauge Johnson 1P044T. These tank engines were built for the Midland Railway originally and most saw service in the LMS after 1923 and the British Railways after 1948. To enter the competition and be with the chance of winning this brilliant prize, all you have to do is answer the following simple question by December the 15th, 2020. Which railway were the Johnson 1Ps built for? Was it A, Midland Railway, B, Southern Railway, or C, North Eastern Railway? Visit keymodelworld.com to register your answer. Right, going into your second competition for this month is him again at Barnabas Junction. Jason from Barnabas Junction has launched the competition live on his show to commemorate his success of Series 3, a very special Series 3, during his live show on the 24th of November, which went with a bang. The prize is a Railway Laser Lines low relief RLL 615BW backscene warehouse 00 gauge kit plus an additional second and third prize to be yet confirmed. Get yourselves over to the show on YouTube to find out how you can enter. The competition closes at 23:59 on Sunday the 20th of December.
The MRYCG podcast team would like to send a special thank you to all of the following people who have taken part in the making of this podcast during 2020, for doing interviews, reading the news, making sweepers, or working hard behind the scenes. Without you and your much appreciated contributions, this podcast would not have been possible.
Chris Hunt,
Peter Gower,
David Hanstein, aka Sparky,
James Cullen,
Reed Ullery, aka Wilma,
Heath Hurwitz,
Vinny Cecito, aka The Cuz,
Jenny Kirk,
Dave Watson,
Brian Finn,
Stuart Bowie,
Tim Wells,
Peter Clark,
Chris Bauer,
Owen Greenslade Yates,
Jack Carter,
Jeff Reedman,
Paul Jones,
Andy Hudson,
Rachel Griffiths,
Jason Griffiths,
Craig Mason,
Mr. Grimm,
David Capper,
Luke Noble,
Oliver Rowley,
Tim Surf,
Gary Lester,
Steve of the Hobbygoblin in Burslem,
Malks Models of Ilkeston,
Jumble Lane Printing,
West Hill Wagon Works, and of course to everybody that has tuned in throughout 2020. From all of us here at MRYCG, a very merry, peaceful Christmas and a happy New Year.